Okay, let's dive into one of history's most, well, complicated figures, Genghis Khan. I mean, just say the name, right? It immediately brings up these epic images of unstoppable armies and an empire that basically stretched across the known world. I mean, listen to this. This is what the people he conquered thought of him. They saw him as a demonic servant, a barbarian scourge, basically a force of pure, unfiltered destruction. But you gotta ask, is that really the whole picture? Right, because that's the thing about him. His whole story is this massive contradiction. How can one guy be this, world-ending destroyer and a visionary who built something entirely new? So you've got these two completely opposite views. On one side, you have the bloodthirsty conqueror, a tyrant who's responsible for the deaths of millions of people. But on the other side, you have this brilliant statesman, a unifier who created the single largest land empire the world has ever seen. How did those two ends even exist in the same person? Let's try to figure it out. Well, to even begin to understand someone like Genghis Khan, you have to go back to the beginning, back to the brutal, unforgiving world that made him. And you have to start with his original name, which was Temujin. I mean, look at this timeline. His life was just relentless. He's born clutching a blood clot, which, believe it or not, was seen as an omen that he'd be a great warrior. Then when he's just a kid, his father gets poisoned. And his own clan, they just abandon him and his family, leaving them to starve. He gets captured, enslaved, but then he pulls off this incredible escape. Every single one of these moments taught him something crucial, and usually something pretty brutal about how the world actually works. And he learned one lesson above all. Power is won through violence. And this wasn't just some abstract idea. When he was still just a teenager, he got into a fight with his own half-brother over some food. What did he do? He hunted him down and killed him. Just like that, he became the head of the family. It's a harsh way to start. So you take that kind of ruthlessness, a mindset forged in pure survival, and you give it an army. That's exactly what happened next. He took that same brutal logic and just unleashed it on the entire world. Just look at this number, 40 million. That's the best estimate we have for the number of people killed during the Mongol conquests. To put that in perspective, that might have been 10% of the entire global population at the time. It's a number so big, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. And if you want to understand his mindset, this whole episode with the Khwarezmian Empire is a perfect example. So he tries diplomacy first, right? He sends a trade caravan. But the local governor accuses them of being spies and kills every last one of them. Genghis sends another diplomat to demand justice, and the Shah kills him too. For Genghis, that was it. That was the ultimate betrayal, an unforgivable insult. So what does he do? He personally leads an army of 200,000 men and completely, utterly annihilates their empire. In his view, that was justice. And his methods were, well, they were horrifying. Boiling chieftains alive, using prisoners as human shields, wiping out entire cities if they dared to rebel. There was this rule, kill every male taller than a wagon's axle pin. It was all designed for maximum psychological shock and awe. The idea was to be so terrifying that the next city would just surrender immediately without even trying to fight. Okay, but here's where the story takes a really sharp turn, because it doesn't just end with all that death and destruction. Out of all that chaos, something completely unexpected started to take shape. A new kind of empire, built on, of all things, order. Yeah, they call it the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. And it was this period where, on the ashes of all those conquered cities, he built a state that was, in a lot of ways, shockingly modern and progressive. Think about this. This is an empire built entirely by conquest, right? But look at the policies he put in place. He created a system based on merit. You got promoted because you were good at your job, not because of who your dad was. He established a single universal code of law called the Yasa that applied to absolutely everyone. He built something called the Yam, which was basically the world's first Pony Express, a super fast postal system. And maybe most surprisingly of all, he guaranteed total religious freedom and even gave tax breaks to religious leaders. This stuff was centuries ahead of its time. And it worked. I love this saying from the time, that a person could walk from one end of his empire to the other with a gold plate on their head and never be robbed. That's how safe it was. And because of that security, the old Silk Road came roaring back to life, connecting Europe and Asia like never before. It was a massive highway for goods, ideas, and new technologies. So you've got this wild mix, right? Unbelievable brutality on one hand, and incredible innovation on the other. And that legacy didn't just disappear. It literally redrew the map of the world, and you can still feel its echoes today. I mean, just for some perspective, look at this. In only 25 years, the Mongols conquered more territory than the Roman Empire did in 400 years. Let that sink in. At its biggest, the empire was about the size of Africa. It's just mind-boggling. And get this, 1 in 200. That's the estimated number of men alive today who are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. A DNA study found that something like 16 million men carry his Y chromosome. Talk about leaving your mark on the world. So, in the end, his legacy is a true double-edged sword. On the one hand, he reunited China, he unified Russia, and that flourishing Silk Road brought game-changing technologies like gunpowder and the compass to Europe, which helped kickstart the Renaissance. But that same trade route probably helped spread the Black Plague. And you can't ever forget the sheer scale of death and destruction it took to build it all. Which brings us right back to where we started. Was he a genocidal monster? Or a visionary who dragged the world into a new era? His story really forces you to ask a tough question. Can the creation of a new, more connected world ever justify the unbelievably brutal means it took to get there? What do you think?